All right, we are live, family. Thank you for your patience. We are finally here with the man of the hour. Gonna have a great show for y'all, family. Make sure y'all share the link. Make sure y'all hit that like button. And if you aren't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Before I bring on my guest, we're gonna get to a quick commercial. This is a commercial from Cambada, me and Cambada, Holy Ghost 3 album coming soon. We'll be right back in 1 minute, family.
Yeah, started out with nothing. Now I got a whole lot of something. Breaking through the roof. Willie Walker when he pressed the button. When I do a money ritual, all of a sudden money started coming. Then I cut the Holy Ghost. I still be rhyming even when I'm mumbling. You repeat my name 3 times. While you staring in the mirror, bottle will appear like poof. I came from out of thin air. To me the gun is like a magic wand. I make a problem disappear. I would knock a nigga teeth out his mouth. What? Just to turn him to veneer. I can do magic. 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 When I open up my mouth, I can move masses. Black magic on the beat, turn it to a classic. I'ma take the money out the bank, then I'ma put it in the mattress. Show me the niggas got it.
All right, all right. Without further ado, I want to welcome back to the show, Akhu. Welcome back, my brother.
Peace, God. Peace, everyone.
Good to have you back on here, brother. Can't wait. Want to get right into it. Can't wait for tonight's conversation. Me and you have had plenty conversation on the phone about manifestation, natal charts, destiny, free will, all that good stuff. I can't wait to see you talk tonight on the natal charts and you know how that determines certain things in your life, what you're gonna do, who you're gonna be. Can't wait to hear Rod Core. A lot of people talk about natal charts. I know you're gonna break this down, brother. Welcome back to the show. Without further ado, brother, I'm pass you the mic, brother. Go ahead and do your thing, brother.
Peace. Simply put, and I'm going to elaborate on it after I try to just put it out there simply for you, man. You know, the natal chart is a diagram of the particular alignment you were born under. All right. If a further explanation is the position of every planet in our solar system had a particular geometric angle to your location here on the planet Earth when you started breathing. Okay. And the moment that you took your first breath, that you became oxidized, that your blood was oxidized, you were considered in and of this realm. This is from an astrological perspective. So when we ask for your time of birth, it is so that we can go back into the annals, the records, the ephemerides or the ephemerists, and find out exactly what geometric degree, how far into each sign, each one of the planets in our solar system was from our position here on the planet Earth. So basically, it's a picture of the sky at the moment of your birth. Now, what is it? It is an instrument used by astrologers to analyze different components of your being, be that your social tendency, your financial potential, what your children are going to be like, okay, what your in-laws are going to be like, you know, what type of partner and what type of energy and what type of activities you need in order to have a secure relationship. Is all right there in your birth chart. Every mark on you is in your birth chart. So don't just point to all of the dream visual images of paradise and idealism. It points to everything here. Okay? The weak and the strong, your weaknesses, your strengths, your tendencies, your likes, your dislikes, your enthusiasm, your capacity to engage in strategic thought, mathematical thought, your social tendency, your favorite color for specific activities. Okay, really. Okay. So, and basically, I'm a predictive astrologer. I need the birth chart to derive the main theme of your life. It is described in the birth chart, and how the sky appears to from Earth as it continues starting at the moment of your birth is the further chapters that are added on to the cover of the book. You know, I would say that the birth chart is the book cover, is a hint as to everything that composes you right there. But the when these things evolve and when you will be subject to these things that are in the birth chart, in the picture of the moment that you were born, when those things will manifest in an actual chronological timeline is determined by fractal motion. You know, the birth chart itself is referenced as the promise. Wow, really? Just hold on a second. I'm going to figure out how to put this in. There it goes. Put this in do not disturb mode, pardon me. People are actually calling my phone number knowing that I'm live. Okay. Crazy. On YouTube. All right. You see my phone number there. That don't mean you're free to call me right now, please, out there in the audience watching.
Bro, I just realized you got your phone number there. Oh man.
No, because the last time we did a show together,
Yeah.
the phone number that you typed it in, you mistyped it.
Okay. Okay.
And people were like, yo, I've been trying to call you for weeks and your phone number, this is not the right one. And I said, well, this time I'll do it myself. Right. But anyway, people out there, if you're watching, please don't call me. This is to call me between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, any day of the year. Okay. Can't promise you that I'm going to answer every day. But if you call me in those hours, you might have to try back. You'll reach me, or I'll call you back during those hours. Okay. 1 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Unless you specify otherwise to me what time to call you back. All right. Now, the natal chart is a key component in analyzing who you are and what's going to happen to you here and what processes you are going to be confronted with, basically. It is a promise of what you will be confronted with. Whether you succeed, fail, is not there. You know, the timing of the confrontation, the success and the failure is given likeliness by aspects. You know, it is there, pardon me. But whether you are going to use the higher part of that or the lower part of that energy is not written. No one can show and prove that that is what is going on, because when it comes out, it matches reality perfectly every time in hindsight and in foresight. So, like, I thought you were going to engage me, Rich. You just want me to lecture about.
Yeah, I thought you had a presentation. You
I mean, I do, but I
yeah.
can go in a zillion different ways here. You know, we actually discussed this topic in part before when I demonstrated Malcolm X's chart. The chart that I want to demonstrate today, to demonstrate the nature of a natal promise, is I was reading this article my wife sent me on a murderer, and she was like, what do you think about the astrology of this guy? Because his name was Joachim George Kroll. He was born April 17th, 1933. And in the course of his murderous career, he has been proven beyond doubt in a court of law, beyond doubt in a court of law, to kill 8 people, though he has confessed to 14 murders. He was a child molester and a necrophile. Like, he liked to have relations with the cadaver, all right, with the dead body. And he was a cannibal. And these are topics that I throw at my students, you know, when I'm testing them or when I want to understand where they're at in terms of interpreting the symbols that are presented to us by the motion of the celestial bodies and the English language that we speak, if they can make the connection. And so I asked them, what is the sign of cannibalism? You think you sharp because you graduated my class? What's the sign of cannibalism? We didn't discuss that in class. Do you think you could find that without my tutelage? Can you use these tools to find it without me? And what is the sign of the necrophiliac? You understand? Who would fuck the dead? Part of my language. Okay. So then I asked them these questions. I said, because these people exist, and there are certain indications in the birth chart that would give indication for them. All right. But before I get into his chart, I want to give you an example that I learned about Martin Luther King's chart. All right. To illustrate to you the natal promise, you can go pull up his birth chart at pretty much any astrological site. You can get his birth chart from Wikipedia or from Google. It is entirely up to you. All right, how you want to drive it. But when you get the chart of his birth, you'll notice that he had the sun at the very midpoint of Neptune and Venus, forming a perfect triangle, in the circle. Okay. And the sun being equidistant from both planets acts as a tying point, a bonding point for the expression of those two planets. But simply put, the sun represents the individual, the innermost self, okay, the me, the I, in any conversation, okay? So therefore, the sun represents I. And Venus, being the ruler of Taurus and the indicator for the second house, is the indicator for ownership, possessorship. Simply put, having. Okay? So I have is the relationship between how his natal promise is being spoken through his chart. And on the other side is Neptune. Okay? Neptune is the planet of inspiration, the planet of vision, and the planet of dreams. So he has these three planets. I have a dream. In his birth chart, years before he pulled the thought out of that ether and manifested it. But he most definitely manifested his chart. When we look at, he had the same thing that Malcolm X had in terms of the indicator for violence and death, or a violent death. Martin Luther King had Mars and Pluto within 10 to 12 degrees of one another. You see? So that's one of them is in Leo, which represents the heart, and the other one is in Cancer, which is the chest. And where did he get shot? And then, even though there's talk of him being smothered, that doesn't erase the fact that he was shot in the upper torso, which is still in his chart, which was promised year at the moment of his birth. You see? So the birth chart points to what is going to happen to a person, to what they like, to what they prefer, to what kind of person. And the chart, the consequent motion of the sky from the moment you're born, after your birth on, is the chronology of that birth moment that was captured in the birth chart. All right? From the birth chart, we can pull information pertaining to, is what I mean when I say derive. We can derive descriptions of your children, their lives, their spouses, their in-laws are in our birth chart. You are in your grandmother's birth chart as her child's child, as the child of her child. And chronology, we can look at the fourth child of a person if they have 4 children. The third child, the second, all using the birth chart. Okay. And from that observation, only from the physical, actual observation, because you listening to me right now discuss the nature of a chart doesn't give you any certain CERTAIN knowledge of what it gives access to. You're only getting my testimony right now. You third-party information is all you're gonna walk away from here with if you don't pull up charts and actually study them and study your own chart to learn. I just wanted to drop that in there. Your natal chart is your promise from the Most High. What you gonna like and what you not gonna like after you get here. I mean, I don't want to start wilding, but that's for emphasis, bro, Rich. Like, inspire me with some questions, man. Because the birth chart describes your mother, her health, what you're gonna do for her, what her life is gonna be like right before she passes. It describes your brother's children and your relationship to them, whether distant or far. It describes the injuries that you're going to have here, So everything that happens to you is given indication by the motion of the celestial bodies. And you must first understand that you are an embodiment of the solar system of the sun that you were born under. Physically, literally, atomically, molecularly, proportionately, in every conceivable way. You are the earth. You are all elements. So if nitrogen acts like this, with the nitrogen in you ain't going to act any different. Nitrogen is nitrogen, okay? Water is wet. If you jump in it and it's not frozen, it's wet, man. So there are certain laws here that you have to perform in, right? And consider that the relationship to these elements that you will experience are expressed at the moment of your birth. This is how, when people call me for samples or we do demonstration or examples of birth chart, for people, they get off the phone saying, yo, he read my whole life. Really, we did not. We read the moment of your birth. We read your natal chart. Or we read an extract from it, an excerpt from it. All right? Understand it is a map of a diagram of the sky at the moment of your birth. Right? And it shows us the planetary geometry you were born under. Now, if you understand that planetary geometry or that geometry period is a mathematical means discovered by us to discover, to examine the relationship between angles, between vibratory frequencies happening at different angles and at different intervals. Okay? That this geometry, the constants in geometry are what create musical notes and color that we see with our eyeballs, that we hear with our ears. Okay? These things, light and sound, are the same thing. All right? They took sound and increased it by amplitude, by harmonic, by what do they call it? Octave by octave by octave. They raised it in a controlled environment, a specific frequency, the same frequency that is said to be the color green. Okay? And when it reached a frequency too high in the chamber, it burst an electromagnetic pulse that emitted green light. So they know that the certain tones correspond to certain colors. Okay? And then by vibratory frequency, they ride the same fractal. All right? So let me show you how the birth chart, the universe, you are the universe first. Okay? Because without an understanding of how physically and literally you are the heavens that you were born under, you must understand the properties to examine, to verify or nullify this idea. Okay? So and you must do it personally. Okay? Everybody here knows their birthday. And fortunately for us, for this demonstration, the time of birth is not needed. And it doesn't matter what time of day you were born, unless you were born with this planet that I'm going to use in this demonstration crossing. You were born the very moment it was making this cross. Then your time of birth is going to be crucial. But for pretty much the most part, I'm going to use the planet Mars. Everybody's heard of Mars. It's the red planet. Okay, it takes approximately 711 days on average, okay, to go around the zodiac 360 degrees. Sometimes it goes retrograde and it takes 28 months. Sometimes it does not retrograde some years and it only takes 23 months. Mars is considered the maverick. Why is it significant? Because everybody on the planet Earth that has breath can identify with fire, whether they see it as the sun or whether they see it as a flame. Or you see, everybody can identify with fire. Everybody, even a moth, has a knowledge of fire and light. All right. So we can use something common that is universal as an example. Now, and that is the planet Mars here, this particular light. All right. You go to your birth chart and you find out which sign Mars is in. Okay. This is traditional astrological mindedness. This is not something that is going to be debated by an astrologer or someone who has knowledge of the craft. All right. Mars points at specific human behavioralisms. It points to specific anatomical components because it vibes. Its orbit is of the same frequency as the blood in our bodies, okay, as the heat that we are able to raise in our bodies through friction and action, because friction and action and heat and fire is Mars. Okay, but in the simplest terms, for every single human being, Mars is fire. Okay, which burns. It is red. Okay, and it deals with penetration. Penetration wounds, specifically pokes by needles, swords, knives, bullets, spears, or arrows. They're all penetration wounds. They all come. They all result and leave you with fever. Right? Fever is heat. It's the heat in the body that fluctuates. To fight infection. Infection is usually red too. All right? So everybody here has had some kind of experience with Mars. Scrapes, cuts, burns, fevers, inflammation. See the word flame? Inflammation. See the root word flame and inflammation? Was that two M's? Oops. Okay. So you find Mars in your chart, and you're looking for your burns, your fevers, your penetration wounds, which, by the way, for all you bright minds, that includes your motherfucking tattoos. Oh, I ain't never been wounded, but you got tattoos all over your body. Shut up. Okay, you were poked 1,000,000 times by a needle for all them joints. They are wounds. Whether it's a paper cut or an amputation, if it bleeds, you're wounded. Okay? This is absolute. Are you wounded or not? Okay? We got scrapes, cuts, inflammation, itching. Okay, we got knives. So therefore, cuts, rips, blood, the red blood cells, capillaries, really, okay, not the white blood cells. This points to the red blood cells in the body. And it does not point to the circulation of blood, just the red blood cell. The Mars rules iron, okay? See, it points to all these things in life, and all your experiences of this nature will be indicated by the motion of Mars. And yes, it will. You just have to learn how to measure it and follow it and see it. And then there's no dispute, or there's no bewilderment, no wonderment, no feeling of magical mysticism indeed. Spirituality indeed, because you see how the Most High moves. You dig? This, I believe, the motion of the planets, that everything in existence is speaking God's language. But and if you're atheist, it's speaking its own language. Okay? And you are the embodiment and the personification of it right here. Everyone is. Okay? According to the moment that they came in here. They came in here endowed with specific gifts that were given indication by the position of the planets. Why? The planets aren't the determining factor. See, you hear these words. People say, how does that determine? It doesn't determine in anything. It's already been determined. What determines that anything happen is that the energy for that thing to happen coalesce and surge at the moment and predominate to influence all the other energies around it to ripple with it. This happens socially, physically, politically, financially, mentally, artificially, realistically, actually, ALLYally, foreverly. Okay? And if you take the time to observe the patterns in nature, from that pattern, you are able to make predictions. You are able to surmise from this cycle and this pattern that every time this happens, this happens. This is science. This is astrology. And we use your natal chart to make this determination. Every time what happens, Ra? Every time something rolls over your Mars. When the actual moon right now in true time rolls over your Mars, it's going to manifest itself right before your very eyes. It's going to take physical form. You see, you are going to experience it. This happens once every month. Now, what is it anatomically? When it manifests anatomically, you have more energy to get much more done. You're also a little bit more irritated on this day and agitated and more easily aggravated than on other days. Okay? These are the days that if you work out, you got more strength. You can push harder in the gym with less sweat. And you have to actually clock your Mars and work out under it, and then watch your environment and your own reaction to these indications to develop an understanding. You see, you were born with 5 fingers and toes. All right, hopefully. All right. And you 2 ears, 1 nose. You dig? 7 holes and 2 more in your body, to emit the waste, right? And to procreate, right? So you understand that you can't decide to change any of that. You can't grow another arm, cut both arms off and grow a new pair back because you don't like the ones you got, you see? You are constricted to this body. That chart is a map of what that body is going to crave, what your spirit craved here. You come down here or you take human form, you personify all of the powers that may be, that are discoverable and undiscovered. You personify all of that for what? To fulfill what? You didn't just think about putting one foot in front of the other. Man has been doing this since time immemorial. You didn't just think about making music. The urge and the desire to make music. Why is it that you don't want to box? Huh? Why don't you want to be an MMA fighter? You want to make music. Why is it that you like the color blue for a car, not red, and that nigga likes red? Okay? And you can't stand red. Why is that? Why is that? For a car. Okay? You see? Why do you want the things that you want? Can you answer that? That's knowledge of self I'm asking you to address. Anyone. This is general. This is not directed to any specific individual. It's directed to the individuals who are seeking to understand that the motion of the universe is what enables reality. All of the atoms in existence have to be, I can hear y'all out there. All of the atoms in the universe have to coalesce and be in harmony for one raindrop to form and fall on the face of the earth, much less a million more of them, zillions of them. You see, the whole universe, can't one atom be out of alignment in order for that to happen? So you must understand that there's a mathematical order here. Now, what kind of math are we using to comprehend, to analyze, to examine this order? What kind of math? We are using geometry. It manifests itself, the sky manifests itself as a concurrence, not a cause, with the things that those planets represent. Jupiter and Saturn don't come over and cause this. They're moving with the same energy in the solar system that they manifest. You're moving with that same energy as it manifests in you. And it moves with your shit. Not, it doesn't cause your shit. Just like you can't cause those planets to do what they do. They're not causing anything. They're just concurring with the soup that is being stirred in the entire well of existence. Okay? We have a means, mathematically, man is capable of devising means of measure to establish a record of recurrences. Now, some people want to argue with me, my students and some historians, about the astrological natal astrology being done in ancient Egypt, and that they don't see it before Hellenistic Egypt. But you know, if you go to the south wall of King Tut's shrine, his second shrine, you know, there are 3 shrines, 3 boxes that held the 3 sarcophagi, right? The second shrine, the south wall, has figurines with planets and stars sending rays to the face and heads of the figurines, all right? Literally put, all right? Planets and stars, distinctly, all right? This is pre-Hellenistic, you know, Egypt, 18th dynasty, I think. So when you consider that they knew, and you had this thing called the hidden places in ancient Egypt on the sarcophagi of Pharaoh Seti. Some people wanted to argue that was his birth chart, but it's not. It represents a specific code, astrological code that follows the deacons every 10 degrees of a sign. Okay, every 10 degrees of the sign is called a deacon. In ancient Egypt, they used 10-degree segments for the symbols and their measures, all right, and for the keeping of their calendar and for the descriptions of persons' personalities and the vocations and what have you. Okay, and much of that is still done today. Herodotus said that the ancient Egyptians were the first to divide the year into 12, to assign each month a deity and each day a diamond, and with it they can determine the works of a man and the nature, the works of a man and his tendencies even unto his death, something like that. Go to book 2 of the histories written by Herodotus and read it, man. Okay, so this science is old, and we've been using it. We've been using it, right? And it's like if you step through a shower right before you enter the building. You know, you're showered with something right before you enter the building, or right as you enter the building. This is what the solar flux and the lunar flux and the electromagnetic flux of the planets, this is how they impress that geometry on you. And the geometry, literally as it appears, there's something called apparent motion that begins with the moment of your birth chart. And every apparent motion thereafter that moment comprises the calendar and the clock for the unfolding of your life. And the birth chart, the natal chart, is that moment of that day. It is the beginning from which every measure is made. If you're doing predictive astrology, it is the beginning for which every consideration and analysis is examined, because the position of the sky is geometrically determined. The positions of the planets, their distance apart. Now, why would that be important? Do you know that Kobe Bryant, when he died, he was 41 years and 128 days when he died? That the geometry of the planet of death and the planet of fall in his chart was exactly 41 degrees, 26 minutes, and like 13 seconds of arc, which if you multiply by 360, it equals his age at the moment of his death. It also shows the aspect between the sun and Mars, and because Mars is the ruler of his house of career, when the sun aligned itself with Mars, he's making his debut that very day in the NBA. Do you get it?
Hey, Ra,
Yes, sir.
let me ask you something. So, since you use Kobe as an example, what in his natal chart? Kobe is known as something called the mom, that he had a Mamba mentality. He had a killer instinct,
Oh man,
and and
I got the answer for you already.
and he had an incredible. Wait, let me finish for the people that don't know what I'm about to say. He had an incredible work ethic, Ra. And I mean, absolutely incredible work ethic. What in his natal chart show? Because that everybody wants a work ethic like that, but it's everybody just ain't got it. What in his chart showed made him have this incredible work ethic, Ra?
Well, what I would point to without having this chart on hand, because I don't have it on hand. I have it in a notebook over here. I can only reference the things that I remember specifically. All right. He was born at the very end of Leo, so therefore, his money house, his values, his morals, his work ethic was Virgo. So he would possess the second house, a very strong work ethic, Virgo. Okay. The Beyond that, the fact that he had to do that to maintain his sense of athleticism, his killer instinct is that he had the same thing Malcolm X had. Mars and Pluto in Libra, though he had it in the sign of Libra, and thus he was accused and went to court for rape.
Mm.
Mars is force, Pluto is sex. Libra would be the consent, right? So he got accused. Mars also, to point your finger, right, is Mars, to identify as Mars. Let me go back to this example. He had Mars and Pluto conjunct, which talked about his killer instinct and his athletic elitism. Elite being Pluto, Mars being athleticism. Okay. Also the accusation, him having to go to court, Libra, for the sexual assault of that woman in the hotel. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
See, but that was in his birth chart. You
Mm-hmm.
see?
Mm-hmm.
That shit didn't happen till much later. That woman wasn't even a thought in his mind until much later. But it was right there in his birth chart that he would go to court for sexual assault. Does it say he was guilty? Does it say he was innocent? I don't know how to make that determination through the observation of the planet. All I can see is what it was. He was accused and went to court for it. You see? Now, go back to Mars here now, personally. Pardon me. Let me give y'all perspective on these keywords. See? There are really thousands of keywords for Mars, but those thousands of keywords that belong to Mars don't belong to any other planet. They are exclusive to Mars. They are exclusive to Aries, to Aryan things, and to Martial things. Okay? Fighting, conflict. Now, what you want to do is develop the understanding that anatomically and biologically, this is what Mars means, pretty much. It means some more. It means more than this. Because it talks about surgery, the healing process, the speed thereof, stuff like that. But this is generally what you're going to look at to make this analysis, right? The fact that Mars contains these words, that it glyphs, it hieroglyphs, using the word hieroglyph here as a verb, right? That it glyphs all of these things. It conveys this idea. It is the ideogram for these key words and concepts, all right, in the human experience. Now, you have, because I'm going to erase this right now, right? So that's why I wanted you to get a good look at it, right? Now, you're looking for what sign Mars is in. Is it in Aries? Is it in Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, right? Is it in Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, or Pisces? Okay? Because these are the spaces we use in this to designate the spaces starting with the spring equinox. I am using the spring equinox to determine the beginning of these spaces, okay? I'm using the tropical zodiac here. Exclusively because it doesn't work with sidereal all the time. All right? So you understand these are the 12 signs. Do you know that this points to your whole individual being? Oh, I thought I was a Virgo. I thought I was a Sagittarius. I didn't know I was all 12 of them. Yeah, man, you have a head, don't you? That's Aries. You have a face. You have a left ear. That's Aries. So if Mars is in Aries, the face, head, or left ear has known one of those descriptors that I gave to Mars. It's known it's been burnt, an infection, it's been cut, scraped, injured, puncture wound, or something like that. Contact with iron, fire, heat, all right? And if it's in Taurus, that's the throat and the neck. So these are the people that get sore throats and they get inflammation of the throat and they get surgery on the throat. See, Mars in Taurus. And it don't matter whether you male, female, magnetic, or electric. All right? It don't matter whether you white, black, yellow, brown, you were born on this earth. This shit even works for cats. Okay? I read my cat with this shit. I watched that cat be born, so I knew the cat's birth chart. And I said to my mom, if this shit is real, it'll work on a cat. Okay? And it did. My cat was born in April, in 2005. Mars was in Taurus, and Taurus was rising. Mars was in the 12th house, but it was in the first sign. So I said, people with this get a scar on their face. You know? And 2 years later, the cat scratches, claws its way out of my apartment in Washington, D.C., in Northwest Washington, D.C., and goes outside for like 6 or 7 days. Almost a week, right? The cat comes back with a gash in his forehead that the hair never grew back over ever again. And I said, that's the same thing that happens to all the niggas I know with Mars in the first house. You see what I'm saying? So until you go out and make your observation, and then you got to understand the human flaw of what we call the time of birth. All right? The natal chart is only valid if the time of birth is valid. The natal chart shows us the day you were born. But from hour to hour, those planets were in different fractals at different degrees, determining different timings for the same physical events that other people born shortly before you and after you would experience. The natal chart is the primary indicator for what you were promised to experience here on this earth. All the pain, all the pleasure, all the triumph, all the failure. Okay? But the chart just points broadly to the material. You know? As an astrologer, I've been doing this for 30 years. I will never, without being psychic, know exactly how Mars is going to treat you. I know that Mars is A through Z. Whether it's a cut, a scrape, an argument, a competition, you being quick, you being impatient, you being angry, you being annoyed or angry, I can't say. I can only say Mars crosses this point in your birth chart, and you should be able to experience the energy that manifests for you. And after that happens, I do this for different people, for 5 to 6 different people a week. All right, as a career. I've been doing it for 5 or 6 people a week for the last 20 years. You see? You have to really see it. You have to measure it for yourself if you want to understand how to calculate these motions on your own. I'm going to need a break, man, so I can get something to drink.
Oh, you want to get a water break?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, do your thing. Do your thing. We about to hit the 50-minute mark. I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. Rod's breakdown is definitely always amazing. The brother goes in thoroughly. What's going on with y'all in the chat? He does readings. I'm glad I had the opportunity. I had King Simon on the other day. He deals with the numerology. Rod Cool does what he do with the astrology, the cosmophysics, and I try to have people from different sciences come through and break things down. And you see, they all have most of them have similar things to say, showing you that we could use many different systems to understand who we are. And I feel as though you got to figure out what resonates with you, and whatever resonates with you, you got to, go in on that. But this is a very interesting topic. Very interesting. We know about the 7 laws of the 7 hermetic laws, and one of the laws is the law of mentalism. All is mental. So we usually approach life from the aspect of, we have to think positive, and we have to carry a certain vibration, and that's true and exact. But this is also important to know your natal chart, because maybe it's both. Maybe it's thinking positive, and maybe you're destined to think positive, and maybe if you're not destined to think positive, you're not going to think positive. So it's just always something to ponder, something to think about. And I think that this is very important. Somebody said Rich asks about Mercury. Yeah, he's about to come back now. When he comes back, when he comes back, somebody said I paid for my natal chart and was still confused. Yeah, it could be confusing. This is nothing. You have to really study this to understand it. And put this got to be a lifetime commitment if you really want to understand and get deep into this. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I know a lot of people with a scar on their forehead too. Yeah, that was interesting when Ross said that about the scar on the forehead. Very, very interesting. Somebody said, can I get my chart done without knowing my time of birth? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know that helps a whole lot. So I'm not sure. We will definitely ask Ra when he comes back. Recap for late arrivals. I would advise you to rewind the tape. We won't be recapping, not too much. When he comes back, he might say a few things that he said already, but you can rewind anytime you need to. And but we have limited time tonight, and we want to get what we could get done in the short amount of time that we have available. Yeah, the chart definitely looks great. Somebody said the chart looks great. Yeah, the chart definitely looks great. Definitely look great.
Okay, I want to run through the rest of the signs so that nobody is left out here. Okay?
All right.
Everybody has Mars in one of those 12 signs, and then therefore Mars has left his mark, figuratively speaking. Mars is giving indication as to what part of the body his description of marks would be on your person at the moment that you were born. Do you get this? When we read your personality traits, we are not reading you, the person. We are reading a map. I'm getting ready to draw it up here so y'all can get it y'all can get some idea of what it looks like, right? But the killer's chart, all right? So as I draw it, I can describe the things that he did in real life that relates directly to these planets. You understand? To what they convey, And let me just do that because understand that Cancer, a Gemini rules the arms and the lungs. Cancer rules the stomach and the eyeballs. All right? And everything that goes on with the stomach. That's acid reflux, gas, gastric, whatever, anything pertaining to the stomach or the eyeballs. All right? The tears and the tear ducts and the salivary glands too. So because the moon and the sign of Cancer point to these things. Leo is the heart and spine, any core in your body. So it is the solar plexus, it is the heart, the muscle that flexes in your chest, and it is the spine, the core of your nervous system. Okay, and it has to do with your cardiovascular system and the pumping of the blood through your body, not the actual form of your blood, right? Your blood cells and things of this nature. So Leo pertains also to your vital force here. You know that the heat under your arms, y'all, is solar energy, right? You get that from the plants you eat, right? And that if you eat meat, you get it because those animals eat plants. So you're getting it third party, second hand from the animal. Okay? So you're getting the chlorophyll that is converted into glucose in the plant and that captures the sun's light. And we transmit that into our bodies when we eat food, when we breathe air. Okay, that shit is in the air. The electrolytes are everywhere. They're in oxygen molecules, and then in the oxygen molecules in the water. All right, and then you feel that heat in your body. That's solar energy right there. And when your heart stops pumping, the sun in your body, because the sun is the heart. All right, this is what Leo points to. All right, people that have Mars and Leo need to be concerned about getting too excited. Their heart better be healthy. They better develop the strength of their heart while they're here, see? And the chart gives you the option to know. Otherwise, you don't know you have a bad heart until it kicks up, until it flares up. We could look at the birth chart of a person and know where their wounds are going to be, know how to protect them against their injury. My daughter was born with Uranus and Aries with the moon and Mars. And I said to my wife, as soon as she came out, oh, she's going to injure her head all the time. You dig it? As she was learning how to walk, every time she fell, she bumped her head. So we had to safeguard her from that as much as possible. Were we able to catch her every time? Oh, hell no. Because she moved of her own volition. Right? She activating her part here already. You see? And it isn't until you actually consider, the frustration you feel, that's also Mars. Okay? The sign that it's in will describe the cause. What frustrates you the most about people, about your mom, about your brother, about your uncle. Because this is where the Most High said you're going to experience that energy at with these type of people. Each one of those signs describes a different type of person in your life, too. See, this is how we're able to look at the chart and tell what your mother is like. You see? Because the mother is Cancer. So we find the place of Cancer and we have a description of your mom's right there. And then don't think that the Egyptians and that every ancient culture on this planet was crazy when they said as above, so below. The natal chart is a picture of the sky when you were born, literally. Geometric picture. Because you're going to get some siderealists that will argue that, nah, that's not what the sky looks like. It looks like it's in this constellation when it's in this sign is the reason why that is. Okay? And some people have a different opinion on how the sign should be measured. But nobody disagrees with the geometry. You see? Nobody disagrees with the idea that the ascendant is 180 degrees from the descendant. And wherever your planets were in relation to those angles is going to be the same in both charts. You see? So your natal chart is like a picture of your whole life in one snapshot. And somebody said to me, what is the best book to understand astrology by? I said, you need to get a chart for every day of your life, at least the first 100 days of your life. The map of every sky, every day of your life. If you were born at 12 noon on January 1st, and you want January 1st at 12 noon, January 2nd, 12 noon, January 3rd, 12 noon, all for the first 100 days of that year. And you want a pamphlet, because in that pamphlet is your emotions that began on your date of birth. See, that's how important the natal chart is. It describes the nature of your children. A man called me today, who I don't want to give too many hints as to his identity, okay? But he called me today, and I'm reading his chart, and he's talking about how many kids he has. And I can clearly see malefics in the first, in the place of the first child, and malefics and benefics in the place of the third child, but malefics in the place of the first and second child. So when I asked him, how many kids you got? He said 3. And I said, so you've been pregnant more than 3 times. You've been pregnant 5 times, right? You have 5 babies. And I'm only counting the 5 planets that are in adverse formation there. And because they are not perfectly all at the same degree, it shows a chronology, one after the other. This one person, this one person, this one. And the first 2 are the malefics. Malefics are planets that give indication of harm or loss. Thus, indication of loss of the first 2 children. And he's like, yo, wow, I got to book a reading. He booked the reading immediately, you see? Because how are you able to see that? First of all, I can add and subtract. And I know geometric measure, how to convert that, all from the birth chart. But there are consequent measures you have to make, because your birth chart didn't explode all at once. You didn't explode all at once. You were in there forming for 9 months. You were in labor for some period of time. It took you some period of time to even realize you had a hand, for you to start thinking in terms of the fact that you have control over this hand that you feel every time you wiggle your fingers while you're laying in that crib. That path to evolution is laid out in the same proportion that everything else in the universe is encoded to evolve by. I ain't provoking no thought. Huh? You never looked at your birth chart? If you have Mars in Virgo, this is a problem with your bowels. This is a problem with your abdomen. Externally, it's the abdomen. Internally, it's your bowels. All of those organs right there behind your belly button. I'm talking about the large intestine, the colon, the rectum, the anus, and the shit that it produces that we term as feces. All of that belongs to Virgo. Okay? People are like, that's crazy. Well, Virgo is that part of the body that sifts through and says, give me this nutrient. I don't want that shit. Give me this nutrient. I don't want that shit. And if you ever watch a Virgo shopping, that's exactly what they do in the grocery market. Oh, this pear is good. I don't want that shit. Okay. Give me this pear. Okay, this one looks good. Yeah, give me Stay picky with everything. I say that to every Virgo, white, black, yellow, Chinese, Puerto Rican, fucking old or young. Stay picky. Dig? You dig? Because this is the side of human nature they embody.
That is facts, my brother. That is facts.
Yeah. Well, this is true of every Virgo that has ever been. You dig? These things are encoded in the scripture, man. Don't give me the plan now. I want to make this very heard, man. The Quran is an ode to astronomical phenomena. God swears by the stars and by the constellation in that book. Okay, and the first chapter of the Quran is 7 short verses called the Fatiha, and the very next chapter of the book is called Al-Baqarah, the cow, And the very next is Imran, the father of the two brothers. Okay, and then the very next is Nisa, the woman. And if you understand that the cow is the same thing as Taurus, the bull, and Imran, the father of two brothers, is the same thing as Gemini, and Nisa is the same thing as the women in the order of their own zodiac at the time, man. Okay? And you get the 7 short verses of the Fatiha are reflective of the 7 stars in the Pleiades in the neck of the bull. This was the beginning of the zodiac for most people to use in Persian astronomical constellational or zodiacal measure. All right, Persian, or what we call Mesopotamian, really. Okay, because they had a lot of that tied in with the Chaldeans and that whole landmass there. You see, so you understand that astrology is a means by which to guide your weather, your personal weather, then it can be used appropriately in that capacity and practically. It's a practical science. See, this isn't something that I woke up with one morning. All right. One morning I woke up, and on that day, my grandmother made me read an astrology book. And from that experience on, I was interested in what it had to say. In my early 20s, I wanted to know how they were making predictions by it. By my mid 20s, I had 7 predictive methods down pat. And now I'm 57. I've been doing it ever since, reading people's lives. And it's really a wonderment to me that this shit really works. I got into it with the utter doubt that it had any significance. See, this is because I didn't have any knowledge. I didn't have sufficient enough knowledge to evaluate its veracity. The birth chart tells it all, and the consequent motion of the sky, starting with the moment of your birth and following thereafter, reveals the path, your evolutionary path in this chronology. Listen, man, this guy, Joachim George Knoll, Kroll, pardon me, Kroll. This cat is a serial killer, man-eater, necrophiliac, child molester, cannibal. All right? Now, there are definite astrological indications for every one of those English descriptors. Okay? A cannibal eating a human being. There's only one chart, one format. You're going to be upset at this, and this is not speaking personally to anyone who identifies as these signs. Okay, let me say that again for clarity. This is not a descriptor for people who identify with the signs. You know, you identify as a Virgo because you were born in August and September. Let me let you know you are a human being, and that Virgo is exclusively and only 30 degrees of the ecliptic from our perspective right here on the planet Earth. If you identify with the sign of Capricorn, Scorpio, I said identify. That's not your identity. It's not who you are. It's what you've been given to exercise here. It's not who you are. Right? So if you understand this, then you're able to perceive it is a picture of how the sky moves with your life, and how your life moves with the sky is what the birth chart is. It's the very first beginning of that process of measuring what life is going to be like for you right here. Okay? Understand this. Mercury goes around the sun 22 times. Every time, consistently, that the earth goes around the sun 7 times. That is, that Mercury goes around the sun pi times a year from Earth's perspective. Isn't it coincidental that Mercury rules the breath and the sun is the heart? And that your breath rate per heartbeat is approximately pi. or your heart rate per breath beat. Yeah, per breath cycle. Inhale, exhale, one breath. You see? So if you understand that mathematical tie right there, your very life, your very breath is tied to the same rhythm of Mercury's orbit around the sun. This is why Mercury is said to rule the lungs, to indicate breathing, coughing, smoking, inhaling or exhaling. Breath itself, speaking, which cannot be done without breath, is a Mercury thing. Do you get it? Thought processes follow the fractal of Mercury. Thus, Mercury is human thought, human speech, how a person writes. You dig? You got Mercury in a fixed sign, you press really hard. If you got Mercury in an air sign, more likely, unless there's a planet interfering with Mercury's expression, you press pretty light when you write. And it's the same way with how people talk. So they be like, I don't like the way this nigga talk. He puts too much emphasis on everything. Yo, check this out. I got Mercury and Scorpio, nigga. This is how I'm supposed to use that energy. You know, you don't like it because it's in bad aspect of your Mercury. You see? But once you have knowledge that it's the geometry that gives indication why you don't like things, and then you really decide then, that's what your choice is. Are you going to let this geometry dictate for you who you going to be? With this energy, because really you ain't got nothing but this energy here. The energy that is here, that's all you got. Okay? All your choices right here in the element table. Okay? Your access to 10 and 15 fingers, you need other people to cooperate for that. Some people are here, their sole purpose is here to learn how to organize people. Some people are here to learn what it's like to stay away from people. Some people are here to learn what it's like to hurt people. And people are here to learn what it's like to help people. How do we know this? Because the sky at the moment of birth of these people concurs perfectly with their deeds and never contradicts it. So, you know, I hear people say, yo, we can transcend the signs and transcend the chart. When you're dead, you can't transcend the need for breath as long as you're here. You can definitely discipline your breath now. But you ain't going to do without it. Okay? Not until it's time to go. See, that's the law. You don't get to outthink reality, man. Reality is the only thing in existence that has no opposite, that has no polar pair, no couple. You peep that? Because that which is unreal never existed. It never was. So only reality is unparalleled. This is why the different religions all refer to God as the most real, as the reality, the ultimate truth, you see, the source of it all. But you got to think, man, you are here learning how to wrestle with these forces. You know, because when you was a kid, you saw fire, you fascinated with it. You touched it and burnt yourself. Okay? But now you can use it to cook your food. We use it to make our toast, right? It's still, fire ain't changed one bit, and you ain't got no choice but to handle fire rightly, or you going to get burned, no matter how old you get, no matter how skilled you get with it. You see? And such is the nature of the energy that makes your anger, that makes your decision make a discerning power. You see? Why is it that the people who get really, 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 really old, they start to wear out? Like, you believe that ain't really supposed to happen? Stars burn out, man. Everything has a peak, descent, of course. Your life, your enthusiasms, okay? If you lived into your 30s, I guarantee you your favorite color now is not the same as it was 15 years ago. Okay? Because you've evolved, you've accepted other experiences, and even that is giving indication in your birth chart. Let me tell you how powerful the birth chart is. Okay? That it is the product of all motion that is happening in the solar system, in the world, and in existence. These planets are all spinning together. You think when a star collapses, that its field of influence doesn't collapse with it, and that every star whose border or field of influence doesn't collapse into, that this is the reason why we gonna have constant motion here, because it's a constantly stabilizing, destabilizing system, like self-propelled machine. We don't even think about the nothingness between the spaces. We too busy looking at the particles. Okay? So astrology is a tool by which to measure the influences. You can measure the rates of your success and your failures, your peaks and your lows. Everybody here knows there's a day out of every fucking cycle called a month, which I mean 360 degrees of lunar travel. Fuck your calendar, January, February, March, April, May. I'm talking about like 27 and 1/3 to 27 to 29 days. I'm talking about that cycle of life. Okay. If you observe that cycle, there is a day out, just like the menstrual cycle flows, and that's everything that has affinity with water flows in that rhythm. Okay. So everything living and everything depending on water. And these things are given indication in the birth chart. Oh, this is another thing. The birth chart is like your imprint. Like I say, you enter the building being showered with something. Well, you cross that threshold, now you smell like you the same color as that shit they just dropped on your ass. So when you step through the womb, you are instantly exposed to all different types of frequencies of electromagnetic energies. And these planets help to transmit some of that shit from the sun, which is purely electromagnetic, into your being. And thus you have life and you have activity. Okay. You also have perception. Because in the womb, your eyes ain't never been open to see. And you've never had any external experience by which to remember in terms of knowing here. So when we come out of the womb, we are instantly exposed to all of these frequencies. Now, if you have an issue with the fact that Mars, millions of miles away from the sun and further from the sun than the earth, that it has anything to do with the transmission of solar flux back to the earth, then you just don't really understand the Callisto experiment. You ain't did enough research. You need to widen your field of research to understand that these things have effects on metals. At least we can scientifically prove that. The moon is silver. Saturn is lead. And this woman named Callisto, she experimented with all 7 of the hermetic metals and the 7 planets said to give indication to these metals, to concur with these metals. And she used the traditional astrological aspects, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 120 degrees, and 60 degrees, to experiment with these metals and mix them. So metallurgists have known this shit for ages. Thus, they talk about the sons of Hero were blacksmiths. You know what I'm saying? Because if they were metallurgists, they knew that there were certain times of the month that metal easily was made into an alloy. And there were certain times of the month where that same alloy was not as easily made. How do we see this here physically? Okay, let me give you an example. You work out every day for 30 days, and you've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 months, 6, 7 months, last year or so. There is one day out of that cycle that your normal routine is a little bit harder than it was. And there's one day out of that cycle, which is usually halfway away from that, within the bounds of that cycle, usually by geometric law, halfway away, where you do your regular routine, you ain't bust a sweat today. You see? So these things are subject to our environment. Okay? It manifests on an even broader scale when we talk about weather. Summer is fire, all right? Autumn is air, water is winter, and spring is fire. I'd say that, right? Spring is fire. And the next season is summer, and that is the peak of the sign of Cancer. It begins, so that's water, you see? And then Libra is air. These are how the seasons come in. And people want to say that tropical astrology is seasonality, but everything runs according to the seasons of this planet. You live on this planet. This planet don't live on your ass. You dig what I'm saying? You don't get to determine the weather here, right? You don't get to determine the places of any of these. But when you learn the places of them, you can take advantage of them. Imagine the surprise of the farmer who discovered that the best day to plant every year was when the full moon happened in Scorpio, which can only happen when the sun is in Taurus. That is the most fertile day of the year. So you know how many years they had to examine and record those crops in order to make that determination, man? This is what the knowledge of astrology is made of. See, this is not arbitrarily made up. You hear amateur astrologers say things like, "Oh, well, to me, it means this." No. 1 + 1 is 2, champ. 1 + 1 can't be 3 to you today, okay? If we're talking simple arithmetic. If we're talking logic, it's another thing. You know, logically, 1 + 1 could be one group of 50 plus another group of 12, thus equaling 62. Okay? On some logical shit. But you have to understand what type of math you're using. You have to understand what science you're using. You have to understand what type of phenomena you're observing, what type of interpretation you're giving, because this science is not arbitrary. I don't get to make up what Mars means. You see, I don't get to make up. To me, Sagittarius don't rule the thighs. It rules the throat. No, man. Sagittarius rules the thighs. And this is true in Vedic astrology as it is in Western astrology. Whether one come out of the other or whether they both come from some other school or not. You know, they're in total agreement with the idea as to what part of the body these symbols give correlation to. And physically, you can make your own observation. You have Mars and Libra. Libra rules the waistline, and it rules the kidneys and the urinary tract. All right? So Mars, urinary tract infection, because nobody's going to have fire up in there unless they get seriously assaulted, tortured, or killed, right? But the fire that would exist there would be the fever, right? In the body. And the Mars and Scorpio. Scorpio is your reproductive organs, all of them. Okay, except in a woman, the fallopian tubes and the ovaries belong to Venus and Libra. They do not belong to Scorpio. But the uterus and the canal and the outside of it, you understand, belong to Scorpio. So people who have Mars there, a lot of those women, because the uterus belongs to Scorpio, these are the women that prefer or ask for what do you call that? Cesarean births, deliveries, okay? I read a girl, I was in an argument with another astrologer, I ain't gonna mention no name. But she said, yeah, this isn't always true of Mars. I said, Mars is always a cut, it is always a fever, it is always a stress. This is where we can be certain that physically, in the tangible world, it manifests as this. How you're gonna take that Mars energy and use it, I can't be certain of. I can't be certain of. You see, until I observe it in you. So therefore, I said, but one thing I'm certain of, since it describes the physical form more than anything else, and what will happen to the person. I said, do you have children? She said, yes. I said, how many? She said, 3. I said, so you have Mars in Scorpio with Pluto. You've had cesarean births. She said, it doesn't say that. I said, have you had cesarean births? She said, yes, I have for all 3 of my children. I'm like, yeah, well, what can you say? It's right there, right before your fucking eyes. You see? I ain't never met her in person. This conversation happened over the internet, man, in my inbox. You see? So I mean, it's really as simple as Mars and Pluto in Malcolm X's chart in Cancer, right? Cancer, I just told you, is the chest, right?
Right.
Mars is penetration wounds. Did he not get shot in the chest? Okay. You see what I'm saying? So when people say to me, man, nah, you can't tell me I didn't create this, God, because I decided at the age of 21 that I was going to do this. You understand? And the plan manifested itself in the physical form when I was 26. I said, I guarantee you, we can look at a chart for the 21st day of your life and find the moment you are going to decide to save that money. I guarantee you we can look at the chart for the age of 26 or 25, what number would I just say? And that the day that corresponds to that year and find the decision Yo, man, I'm gonna show no. You said don't wild out, Rich, but I can't help myself, man. I'm gonna show no true and through modern day light magician, man. And I'm gonna say I'm quite proficient because I practice solving how to calculate a righteous living. I track the stars and their cycles within the macrocosm of microrhythms. So I feel like I got twice the wisdom, insight, and vision of any of your tripe religion. I can show and prove at any cipher speaking how your whole freaking life was written by the slowly moving transits of the planets and the lights in heaven while you were so enthused with sitting in your motherfucking diaper shitting. And you know it's true. No matter who you ask, you're going to have to do your math to be a master of this craft. And it's obvious if you don't. And I'll be laughing at your ass. See, because I got no problem with you getting cash for spitting trash, but you probably forgetting karma soon pass you, boom, bash, and smooth crash into your ass. So integrity is everything, man. You see? And I just want to let everybody know you are a manifestation of the universe the moment you were born. You embodied it and it embodied you. And you ain't left without a map, without a clock, without a guide, without something to have the fullest understanding of yourself with. They have incepted the symbolism of this science into religion. This is why it talks about on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. They slip it in there. This is why you have 12 disciples and 12, because they want to let you know this come from on high. They want to give you the impression of what they're presenting you come from on high. So they use what is on high to do it. You know, all the systems of spiritual cultivation are of the same highest vibratory frequency of what this universe is the lower vibratory frequency of. If you can wrap your mind around that, Earth is slow vibratory heaven. Heaven is fast vibratory Earth, right? When you're dead, you don't have a body, y'all. Ain't no pussy in heaven, man. Okay? When you're dead, you don't have a body, God.
This dude
you get
here.
that body when you get here.
This dude
And
here.
how do I know you don't have one there? Because you leave this body that you bring here. You leave it here when you go. So therefore, what you have here is the spiritual experience that you think you're gonna have when you go back there. You're having that shit right here. You dig? And your ability to feel, to individuate yourself in the from the undifferentiated matter of the Lord's presence, man. You see, because there ain't nobody there but Him. You see, so when you're there, you ain't got no individuality. I want to know what it's like to be able to try to make it look like that I can do some shit like you, God. I want to go down there and do some shit like you. I'll let you go down in these conditions. You gotta be like me, champ. You're gonna experience the death of your mother, maybe the death of a child, maybe you still gonna remember me. You still gonna glorify me. You still gonna embody me. This is my personal belief because the chart. There's no history that we can find on any human being. We know their history where they have ever contradicted their chart. It ain't about transcending it. It's about embodying it, man. You are the embodiment of it. You came here to embody it. Even the nigga who killed himself, Caspar Weinberger, he had Mars and Pluto conjunct in the sign of suicide, in the sign of Scorpio. And that is not to say that every person born with the sun or the ascendant in Scorpio is suicidal, but y'all all fantasize about what it's like in the afterlife anyway. Every last one of you. You know, so this is because it's built into your nature. You know, you got no questions, Rich? You ain't no comment?
Nah.
I'll give you an idea how we manifest our charts, y'all, because people don't understand. The Egyptians showed us how to measure the motion of these stars and when they were most active. All right, this is why we got the circle and the square. You got the compass and the square and masonry, and you got the circle of the chart, and you got the angles in astrology. All right. Whenever a star or a planet hits north, east, south, and west in that circle, this planet is at its strongest potential. So understanding that this is geometric truth, I have observed these things. And in observing these things, I'm able to tell people when they're able to take advantage of benefits or to when to reserve themselves, when to practice exercise reserve. And so I experimented with this shit for years before I ever started, going public with it, right? It was already refined to a science before I ever got to broadcast it on Know the Ledge, Abundance Child, or your show. You understand? Because y'all are responsible for launching me. Thank you. Right? So let me tell you that when one of your planets progress to these places, you want the planet of money or the planet of benefit at these places. This shit happens for you 4 times a year. On these days, getting provisions is easier. Guaranteed. I call A.A. Rashid, I call Red Pill, I call Brother Show, all them. Because they brought me on their platforms and they was like, yo, I want to see this shit. This shit is really real, God. Show me how it really is really real. So I showed them, I gave them schedules. I said, on these days, you should expect interaction from these types of people. You should expect to be surrounded by these colors predominantly, these type of, and sure enough, man, it works like that. It works like that. The reason, let me tell you the reason why the Billy Carson affair in November, a couple years ago on November 9th was such a successful prospect for me, because I was having a Jupiter on that day in New York. You see? So I don't get to determine the rate of how often Jupiter hits. I get to determine it by measure when it's going to happen. I get to say, oh shit, on the 6th, 4 days from now, and I'm gonna have, and I tried hard to make the last Jupiter I had 4 days ago. I tried to make it money. You understand? I did everything I could that Jupiter describes that I had knowledge of to make money. And my wiz was like, yeah, so did you make any money today? I was like, no. But at the end of the day, we had a legal class, civics class, and the people in the class got readings from me, and one of them purchased a reading right there. So I said to my wiz, I guess I did have that Jupiter today. You see, as bad as I tried to give it this form, it took this form, but it was still Jupiter nonetheless. Jupiters are always welcome. These are situations in your life where in its most meager expression, that energy is you finding shit funny. It is also confidence. The days that you feel like, yo, can't shit stop me today, dog. Because you are soaking up all your Jupiter juice, man. You wide open to it. You did? Just like the summer is wide open to the heat, and the winter is wide open to the cold, and autumn and spring are wide open to the influx or the outflux of cool.
You're right. I want you to do. The next show is gonna be exclusively mini readings. I want the people to see you in action. They seen King Simon in action the other day. I know a lot of people know about your stuff, but we're gonna do a show exclusively on dedicated to mini readings. So that'll be the next one when the brother come back. But I gotta get out of here. I want to thank you for coming on once again and dropping it. Presentation. Said a lot of amazing things, brother. I hope everybody rewinds this one. You ain't gonna get it in just one take. Before we get out of here, as usual, leave your contact information, Ra.
My phone number is 516-881-6992. You can reach me between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are out of the country, you can get me on Skype with that same acronym without the $sign. And that $sign shouldn't be there, because I don't use Cash App anymore. I use Venmo, Zelle, and PayPal now. I don't use Cash App. So that's a typo on my part with that $sign there. Cosmo361. That is also my name on Instagram. Please don't DM me on Instagram. Okay, I got more than 26,000 now. All right. So the DMs is clogged with all kinds of garbage. I don't want to read through it. Call me between 1 and 7 on Skype or on my phone, and you'll get through to me. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Hey, with that being said, I want to thank everybody in the chat. Thank you, Rod Cool. Once again, this is Brother Rich Black Magic 363. And we sign out, family. I'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.